So when I first heard the news, I thought it was fake. I thought it was a hoax, some AI generated nonsense that was meant to generate clicks. But then I dug a little deeper. I checked and double checked and triple checked. I saw pictures of the fire and pictures of the charred, smoking stone walls, and I realized it was real. The Grand Canyon Lodge on the North Rim, easily, easily one of my favorite places on Earth. Perhaps my favorite place on Earth, if I'm being honest, was burning to the ground. And much of the surrounding wilderness was engulfed in flames. And when I saw that, something inside of me just broke open. But maybe not quite in the way you'd expect. If you've ever been to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, then you know it's different. It's different than the south rim of the Grand Canyon by a wide margin. And this is principally because the north rim of the Grand Canyon is actually 1,000 feet higher in elevation. So you get a lot of different temperatures and seasonal changes as opposed to the south rim, which is pretty much just desert all year round. And the North Rim is not just, beautiful. It's that, uh, but it's its own vibe, I guess. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's quiet. It's the kind of place that doesn't shout for your attention. It just waits. And then when you finally stop moving, and when you finally look, the canyon in some way it speaks to you. And I can't fully explain that. I'm sorry. Postcards just don't do it justice. They never do. It's something you have to go and experience for yourself. There's just something about the Grand Canyon that speaks to your soul. Now, I remember the first time I went to the North Rim. I think I was 22 years old. And I had just started working for the Anasazi Foundation in Arizona as a trail walker. As a trail walker, I worked with teens and young adults who were trying to change their life. Some of them were trying to overcome addiction, alcoholism, other problems and concerns that were in their life. And my job as a trail walker was to just hike with them through the wilderness, um, just ensure their safety and also share the journey with them, learn with them, and just make sure they were safe. Uh, But truth be told, I, at that time, was struggling with my own wilderness. Um, Not long before I took the job, I'd gone through a really rough patch, like a rough time in my life, a time when I felt like everything I had dreamed of, everything I had imagined and hoped for the future had just been destroyed. I was doing better working at Anasazi, but everything just felt sort of bleak, desolate. Most days I was just trying to make it through, just trudging through. So on one of my off weeks, my dad, who he knew I wasn't doing well, he suggested that we take a little trip to the North Rim. And I shrugged my shoulders and went along. I didn't expect much. I figured it would be at least a nice view and maybe we'd get some dinner afterward. Um, and that's about it. That's all I was expecting from that trip. But when we finally got there, when I stepped out to that overlook and I saw the canyon stretching out in front of me, something inside me just woke up. Here was this natural wonder, a wonder that had been, carved by God, a testament to time, but also a testament of the power and the beauty of persistence and endurance. It was a testament to life, life that had existed long before me and would exist long after me, and it was incredible to witness. I mean, of course, I didn't actually think all of those things in that moment. I was, 22 after all. It was mostly a feeling. It was like a part of me I thought was lost started to wake up again. Not in some like big dramatic way, but just a little flicker of hope. It was like a reminder that I was still alive, that maybe my life was worth rebuilding, that there was something good in store. And that was almost, 20 years ago, and I'm happy to report that my life was indeed worth rebuilding. In the years since then, I have been back to the Grand Canyon many, many times. I've taken my kids there, and every single time I go, it does something to me. It stretches my soul. It reminds me that life is worth the journey. It's worth rebuilding. So when I heard about the fire at the North Rim, I was devastated. On July 4th, 2025, so this year, there was a lightning strike on the Kaibab Plateau, and it started what is now known as the Dragon Bravo fire. I don't choose these names, but that's what it was. It didn't look like much at first. In fact, a lot of uh, the initial reports were that they were just going to let it burn because there's good things that can happen from a controlled burn, and it looked like it was going to be fairly moderate. But this year has been a very dry year. Utah, Arizona, pretty much everywhere, a very dry year. And when the wind picked up, the fire got very aggressive. And over the next few weeks, the fire tore through 145,000 acres of the Kaibab Plateau. In fact, the wind, as I understand it, shifted and started pushing the fire, fanning it towards the North Rim, basically the lodge of the Grand Canyon. And between July 12th and 13th, the Dragon Bravo fire burned down the Grand Canyon Lodge, the North Rim Visitor Center, a gas station, staff housing, and dozens of other structures, like very historical structures. Been there for almost 100 years, some of those buildings. Everyone got out, staff, visitors, and even numerous park animals. And that's something to be grateful for, that no one died in this fire. Now, I say that because I know that whenever there's a massive wildfire, it's easy to focus on the loss. Like I just did. I focused on the loss of these historical buildings and a lot of that land. But I want to share with you a miracle of Mother Nature. In fact, this is why I sat down and decided to write this episode. It's just been on my mind constantly. There is a little miracle in Mother Nature that I learned about really at Anasazi while I was working on the trail. It's a bit of magic that Mother Nature is really good at, and people struggle to see this miracle, to acknowledge this magic. One of the many, many things that makes the North Rim so beautiful and so stunning and so unique are the abundance of ponderosa pine trees. Now, ponderosa pine trees are different than other pine trees. For one thing, they're humongous. I mean, gigantic. A mature ponderosa pine tree can reach up to 125 to 230 feet. I mean, it's just a straight up, massive branches, absolutely gorgeous tree. And its bark is very special. Well, for one thing, the ponderosa pine bark actually smells like butterscotch, and I'm being honest. Like, it's not where you get butterscotch, but you would think that that is where they get butterscotch. If you go up to it, there'd be these cracks in the bark, and you just go right up to it, And I know it makes you sound like you're crazy, but if you press your nose against it and smell, it smells exactly like butterscotch. And you'll swear that's where they extract the syrup to make butterscotch. But there's something else about its bark that makes it unique. It's very thick, several inches thick. And this feature helps protect ponderosa pines from wildfires. Now, there's some trees like it's the lodgepole pines. They need fire actually to crack open their cones and release seeds. The resin that holds the cone together is actually it's too strong, and so it needs heat in order for the cone to split open. Ponderosa pines don't need fire to open, but they really do benefit from fire because without fire, the forest floor, like I was talking about with controlled burns earlier, the forest floor gets too crowded with underbrush and weeds and other debris. But fire clears out the brush and makes room for sunlight. And this in turn helps ponderosa seeds grow because there's no competition. So even if the flames seem destructive, they're often setting the stage for new growth, for new life. And because of this one unique feature, the thick bark, ponderosas will not only survive many wildfires, but they're likely to eventually dominate that landscape because there's no competition. So, in a very real way, without the destruction of fire, some trees, some plants, some life cannot grow, cannot thrive. Without loss, they don't become what they were meant to be. And I think about that a lot. I've been thinking about it a lot ever since that fire happened because I think maybe that's true for us too. Maybe there's a metaphorical destructive fire sweeping through your own life. I know recently I've had things happen in my own life that just felt like, oh, this really, this too? Just feels like everything that you're building is just getting destroyed. And you may think that there's one in your own life, that one that's destroyed everything, or what you think is everything. But maybe, just maybe, that fire isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's the beginning of a brand new story. On that note, the fire at the Grand Canyon has subsided, and I'm constantly checking on updates. I'm waiting to hear what this new story about the Grand Canyon will be. The North Rim is closed to visitors for the remainder of this year, which sucks because I was legitimately planning on going two separate occasions this year. Uh, but I expect many of the trails will be open next spring. The Park Service is already working on recovery. Researchers are assessing the land, and people are figuring out what to rebuild and how and when. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be quick, but here is what history tells us. They have done this before. You see, the original Grand Canyon Lodge on the North Rim was actually built in the 1920s. It was a beautiful, massive structure. I mean, it was substantially larger than the one that was just destroyed. And it was designed to blend into the land right on the cliff there, using local limestone and pine. Back then, it was a big deal. People came from all over the country, all over the world, to stand on the edge of something ancient and peaceful and wild, and just take in the grandeur of the Grand Canyon. But on September 1st, 1932, a kitchen fire broke out in the early morning, and within 30 minutes, the lodge was engulfed in flames. And just like that, all that beauty, all that effort burned to the ground. And what was left there were a few stone walls, some smoke, and a whole lot of questions. And the most pressing question was, what do we do now? Well, I'll tell you what they didn't do. They didn't walk away. They didn't say it's hopeless. Nope. These were people whose bark was thick. They rolled up their sleeves and they got to work. And in 1937, a new version of the lodge opened. They actually used the same stones, the same basic footprint, and constricted it just a little bit, made it more sturdy, more reliable. And they built the brand new lodge. It was smaller, it was simpler, but it was stunning and it was welcoming. And you know what? This new lodge has burned down again, basically. But people with thick bark will rebuild it again. And hundreds, perhaps thousands of people who have been touched by the beauty and the wonder of the north rim of the Grand Canyon will probably come and help them rebuild it. Will probably take part in that rebirth, that growth. And they won't just build buildings, simple structures, because whatever they build will have a deeper meaning attached to it because it's more meaningful now to rebuild what was destroyed. It's worth it, right? If you rebuild something, you're telling that structure, you're telling that event, you're telling that plan, that life, this is worth it. It's worth all the pain, the sweat, the toil, and the tears. This is worth rebuilding. Life is worth rebuilding. Anyway, I just felt like writing this episode to let you know that if you're in the middle of something hard, if you feel like your world is on fire and everything has been destroyed, please understand that you have thicker bark. Hang on, stand tall, and rebuild. There's way more life ahead of you, and it is worth the struggle. Anyway, I'm Seth Adam Smith. Thank you for listening. Keep moving forward.